So today we're doing a deep dive into something that honestly feels like a paradox.
Oh, a total paradox, yeah.
Right, because we spend so much time looking at, these frictionless digital networks, SaaS platforms, apps that scale to 1 million users overnight. But our mission today is to understand the absolute gritty physical reality behind India's massive 111 lakh crore infrastructure boom.
Right, the stuff that actually gets built.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're looking at a company called Crown Lifters Limited. And we have a stack of sources here
Wow.
detailing their operations, their market position, and their risks. Because for you listening, I want you to imagine a scenario.
Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine you've just been tasked with building a bridge for, say, a 1.1 lakh crore bullet train project.
No pressure.
Right? No pressure at all. And you need to lift this massive 200-ton slab of concrete up into the air. How do you do it? I mean, you don't just go down to the store and buy a crane.
Right.
You call a company like Crown Lifters.
Yeah, buying it makes zero sense.
It's like renting a tuxedo for a wedding. You know,
Mm.
you only need it for a specific period. Buying a custom tux is prohibitively expensive, and it just spends the rest of its life sitting in a closet gathering dust.
Except in this case, the tuxedo weighs 500 tons and needs a highly specialized crew of mechanics just to put it on.
Exactly. A 500-ton tuxedo.
It really is the perfect antidote to that digital fatigue we often run into. In an era obsessed with software, we forget that massive asset-heavy infrastructure is what actually builds a nation. Crown Lifters is essentially a window into the picks and shovels of India's infrastructure boom.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want to know what they actually do day to day. So they're headquartered in Mumbai, been operating since 1984. But they don't manufacture the cranes.
No, not at all. They just rent them. They have this active fleet of 34 cranes right now. So that's 24 that they own outright and 10 that are subcontracted.
Now, 34 sounds, it sounds like a rounding error if you're thinking about rental cars. But these aren't cars.
Right. A single crane in this class is basically an entire enterprise. Let's break down the fleet. The core of their heavy lifting power comes from their crawler lattice boom cranes.
Okay, yeah, the lattice ones. When you look at pictures of these, they look almost counterintuitive. Like the boom, the arm that actually does the lifting, it's just this intricate hollow cage of thin steel pipes.
It looks fragile.
Yeah. It looks way too fragile to lift a 300-ton refinery piece.
Mm-hmm.
How does that hollow web not just instantly snap?
Well, it comes down to basic physics. Tension and compression. I mean, if you built a 100-meter arm out of solid steel, it would be so incredibly heavy that the crane would spend most of its power just keeping its own arm from snapping off.
Oh, wow. So you'd lose all your payload capacity.
Exactly. The lattice uses triangles, which are the most structurally rigid shape. When it lifts something heavy, the diagonal steel pieces are pulled apart, that's tension, and the horizontal and vertical pieces are crushed together. That's compression.
So the force is distributed.
Right, across hundreds of those little nodes. So it maximizes how much you can lift compared to the weight of the crane itself.
And they're called crawlers because they don't have tires, right? They have tracks like a tank.
Yeah, which is purely a geotechnical thing. Mega projects aren't built on nice paved parking lots.
Usually it's just mud.
Mud, uncompacted sand, rubble. If you put a 500-ton machine on tires, the point pressure would instantly punch right through the earth. The tracks spread that massive weight over a huge area so it doesn't sink.
Right. But, tracks are slow. You can't just drive a tank across town quickly. Which brings us to their telescopic boom cranes.
Yeah, the telescopic ones are completely different. These are solid steel tubes that slide out using hydraulics.
And these are the ones on actual truck wheels, right? Highly mobile.
Exactly. You use these for pipelines or wind farms. You can literally drive a telescopic crane down the highway at 60 kilometers an hour, pull up to a site, deploy its outriggers to stabilize it, do the lift, and drive to another district by the afternoon.
That's crazy. Yeah. And then they also have the lighter stuff, right? Like aerial platforms.
Yeah, scissor lifts and spider lifts.
I was looking at those spider lifts. They're wild. They can fold up to fit through a standard set of double doors, and then they deploy these huge robotic legs to balance on uneven floors.
Yeah, think about building a new airport terminal. You don't want to build a mountain of scaffolding just to paint the ceiling or run electrical wires.
That would take forever.
Right, so you just drive a spider lift in, send a worker 80 feet up, and you're done.
And before any of this even happens, you need the piling rigs. This was fascinating to me in the sources.
Oh, the geotechnical stabilization, yeah.
Right, because if you're building a coastal road in Mumbai, you can't just pave over reclaimed sand, it'll sink. So these piling rigs use massive vibro hammers to physically drive steel foundations deep into the earth.
They pound them down until they hit solid bedrock. It is incredibly violent work, but if you don't do it, the whole project is a liability.
Okay, so they have this massive specialized fleet, and their clients are the absolute giants, Reliance Industries, Larsen & Toubro, Tata Projects, Ultratech Cement.
The blue chip companies.
Right. But wait, this is my big question. If Reliance and Tata have such incredibly deep pockets, I mean, they have billions, why don't they just buy their own cranes? Why rent?
Well, that's the core of the whole model. The cost of ownership for a large crane is staggering. We're talking anywhere from 10 crore to 55 crore for just one unit.
Just one.
Wow.
Yeah.
And construction is project-based. So say L&T buys a 40 crore crane to build a refinery. What happens when the refinery is finished in 2 years?
I guess it just sits there.
Exactly. It sits idle. This is what we call idle time risk. It just bleeds money in depreciation, storage, and maintenance. So renting allows these massive companies to keep their balance sheets totally light and shift all that risk onto Crown lifters.
Okay, but if Crown is holding all that risk, how do they defend themselves? Because anyone with a good bank loan could buy a 40 crore crane and just undercut Crown's daily rental rate.
On paper, yeah, they could. But here's what's fascinating here. Crown's biggest advantage over competitors isn't just owning the steel, it's their in-house maintenance capability.
See, I saw that in the filings and I kind of scoffed at it. I mean, every heavy equipment company has mechanics. How is that a moat?
Because you have to think about the brutal environment these machines work in. They're out in 45-degree heat, choking dust, heavy rain. Heat alone is a nightmare for hydraulics.
Because the fluid thins out.
Yeah, exactly. The oil viscosity changes, seals degrade, pressure drops. Breakdowns aren't just likely, they are a daily certainty on these sites.
Okay, so the crane breaks down. Why is Crown better at fixing it?
It's all about the speed of the repair. If a 500-ton crane breaks down on an L&T mega project, the financial bleeding is immediate. The workers are idle, the trucks are backed up. A stalled project costs L&T massive amounts of money per day in penalties.
Oh, right, because of the contracts.
Right. Now, if they rented from a cheap, unorganized competitor, that guy might have to call a mechanic from 3 states away. The crane is down for a week.
And L&T is losing millions.
Exactly. But Crown has been fixing these specific machines for 40 years. They have all the parts. They have the mechanics on staff. They can have that crane running again in hours. That institutional knowledge is their true moat. You can't just buy a crane and compete. You need the mechanics to keep it running.
So L&T happily pays a premium to Crown because they're basically buying operational insurance. That makes so much sense. But to make this rental model work, there has to be a constant stream of massive projects. Like, you can't have a gap in demand.
No, you need structural tailwinds.
Right. And the sources point straight to the National Infrastructure Pipeline, the NIP, which is valued at an astonishing euro 111 lakh crore. I mean, that number is almost too big to comprehend. How does that translate into actual demand for these cranes?
We have to break that number down into physical realities. India's population is 1.4 billion, and 65% of them are working age. So this demand isn't just a government fad, it's demographic destiny. The first big driver is urbanization.
Right. The shift from 35% urban today to 50% by 2040.
Think about the physical space that requires. You can't just build outward forever. You have to build up
High-rises.
high-rises and underground metros. And building high-rises requires massive crawler cranes. You can rent those out for €1 lakh per day.
Wow, per day. And then there's the renewables push. India wants 500 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2030.
Which is incredibly heavy equipment intensive. Think about a wind turbine. The blades are 80 meters long. The housing weighs 100 tons, and you have to lift them 120 meters into the air, usually in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, so that's where the highly mobile telescopic cranes come in.
Exactly. Every single megawatt of solar or wind installed requires 1 to 2 cranes. Telescopic cranes are perfect for this, and they rent for 80,000 to 1.5 lakh a day. It's essentially a massive revenue guarantee for the next decade.
And then, of course, the mega projects, the coastal highways, the bullet train. It feels like Crown Lifters is essentially riding the wave rather than making the ocean. Their success is completely tied to national growth.
Absolutely tied to it.
So with demand this high, what does the actual business engine look like? Let's open the hood on their operations. How does the money actually flow?
Well, the bulk of it, about 60 to 70%, comes from pure rentals, just leasing out the steel. Then another 20 to 25% comes from services and maintenance.
Like billing for complex lifts or if the client damages the crane.
Exactly. It turns their maintenance team into a profit center.
But the margins are what really blew my mind.
Mm.
Crown Lifters historically reports operating margins around 59%. I mean, 59%. That's software-level profitability. Why are the margins so high on heavy machinery?
Because of the interplay between fixed and variable costs. Once Crown buys a crane, its operational lifespan is remarkably long, 18 to 30 years.
Wait, 30 years? You have cranes from the 1990s still working?
If they are maintained well, yes. The heavy steel structure doesn't really degrade. You just rebuild the engines. So after the first few years, the crane is fully depreciated on their books. The massive initial cost is absorbed.
So after that,
After that, every day it spends on a job site, minus the operator's wage and the diesel fuel, is almost pure profit. That's why their target is 70 to 85% fleet utilization. If the crane is working, it's printing money.
you can really see it in their recent numbers. In September of 2025, they did 9.53 crore in sales, which is a 26% jump from the previous year.
Right, the operating leverage is incredible.
But here's where it gets really interesting. When you look at their financials, the year-over-year growth is strong, but their quarter-to-quarter revenue fluctuates wildly. It's incredibly lumpy. Why?
Because infrastructure isn't a subscription model. A project might need 5 massive cranes running 247 for 3 months just to erect the steel frame. During that time, Crown's utilization is at 95%. They're making massive revenue.
Right.
But then the steel frame is done, the cranes are sent back. For the next 8 months, the builders are doing electrical and plumbing work. They don't need cranes, so Crown's utilization drops while they look for the next project.
So it directly mirrors the physical phases of construction.
Exactly. Which brings up the ultimate question. How do they actually grow? They're operating at roughly 90% utilization right now.
Which means they're maxed out. If Tata calls and needs 3 cranes tomorrow, Crown has to say no, and Tata goes to a competitor.
Right, you're leaving money on the table. So in a market where 80% of the players are unorganized, local guys with 1 or 2 machines, the best way for Crown to grow is just brute force capacity expansion.
Which explains their planned capital expenditure. They have a 60 crore capex planned for FY26, specifically to buy more cranes.
More cranes equal more revenue. Simple as that.
But, I kept reading the sources looking for, I don't know, a tech angle. Like, why don't they offer an app? Or an asset-light brokerage model where they manage other people's cranes? Or even expand into Dubai?
I get that instinct, but there is zero evidence of a digital pivot or global ambitions here. And honestly, it makes sense. This is a purely analog, localized business.
You can't just abstract it into software.
No. Growth here isn't about disruption or ecosystems. If you broke down another guy's crane through an app and it breaks on an L&T site, your app gets blamed. You lose the client because you don't control the maintenance.
That makes sense. But they do have one massive tailwind that doesn't require an app. Formalization. The government is bringing down the hammer on the unorganized sector.
Oh, absolutely. Stricter safety regulations and the new BSVI emission norms are a game changer.
Because the local mom-and-pop operator can't afford to retrofit their 15-year-old crane to meet BSVI standards.
Exactly. The retrofit would cost more than the crane is worth. It's economically impossible for them. Plus, the blue-chip clients want strict safety compliance. They don't want the liability of an unorganized operator. So the regulations are essentially forcing all the demand right into Crown's lap.
But heavy steel comes with heavy risks. We have to look at the storm clouds because a lot can go wrong here. The primary risk seems to be extreme cyclicality and external shocks.
Yes, if you look at Q1 FY25, it was a brutal demonstration of this.
It was like the perfect storm. You had heat waves, extended monsoons, and a national election all hitting at once.
And let's look at how that actually affects the sites. When temperatures hit 45 degrees Celsius, you physically cannot pour large amounts of concrete. It cures too fast and cracks, and it's unsafe for the riggers, so the site shuts down.
And the cranes just sit idle.
Right. And then the monsoons hit. Saturated ground cannot support a 500-ton crane. It will tip over. So again, heavy lifting stops, the cranes sit idle.
And then the elections. Bureaucrats stop signing permits, capital stops flowing, projects freeze. It's like running an outdoor amusement park.
That's a great way to put it.
You can have the best rides in the world, but if it rains all summer or if the town cuts the bus route that brings people there, you're going to bleed cash. Because when utilization drops below 50%, all those fixed costs, the depreciation, the salaries, they start eating you alive.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it shows how fragile infrastructure development really is. It requires this perfect, miraculous synchronization of weather, politics, and mechanics.
And there are other risks too, like state budgets. If a state government runs a deficit and delays a metro project, Crown feels that immediately.
Or the aging fleet. We talked about how extending a crane's life to 30 years is highly profitable, but the sources explicitly warn about substantial upkeep costs.
Right, because if you're pushing an old crane to its limits, massive parts start breaking.
And if it breaks down repeatedly on a critical client site, you don't just lose maintenance money, you destroy client trust. L&T will just go rent newer steel from someone else.
And what about competition? What if peers flood the market with new cranes?
That's the fleet overcapacity risk. If there are more cranes than projects, rental rates could drop 20 to 30%. That would completely crush Crown's margins on that new 60-core equipment they just bought.
It is a totally unforgiving environment. So who is actually managing all this risk? Let's talk about the people pulling the levers. Crown Lifters is essentially a family-run enterprise. Right.
Yes. It's anchored by two main figures. Karim Jaria is the chairman and managing director. He's been there over 23 years. And Nizar Rajwani is the CFO, who's been there over 13 years.
And the ownership structure is really striking. The promoters, the founders and family, own roughly 70% of the entire business.
This is a classic case of skin in the game. Their personal wealth is entirely tied to the multi-decade success of this company.
And you can see that in their compensation. The CEO makes 60 lakhs a year, and the CFO makes 30.1 lakh a year. I mean, for running a massive capital-intensive infrastructure fleet, that is incredibly modest.
Right. They aren't extracting massive salaries to enrich themselves in the short term. They're letting the value compound within the business.
That sounds perfect, but what's the catch?
The catch is key person risk and an opaque succession plan.
Because the leadership is so top-heavy.
Exactly. You have Karim Jaria with 2 decades of granular knowledge and deep client relationships. But there is no clear evidence in the filings of a deep middle management team.
Like if he steps down tomorrow, who takes over?
Right. Scaling from a local business to a major national player requires a deep bench of talent regional directors, procurement heads. We just don't have data on that bench strength. If they don't have it, the momentum could stall.
Wow. Okay, bringing it all back to you, the listener. What does this all mean? Crown Lifters is this incredible story of heavy metal, massive 59% margins, and the brutal realities of weather and politics. They are a crucial behind-the-scenes player enabling India's Euro 111 lakh crore transformation. And they're doing it with the incredibly deep moat of just knowing how to fix a broken machine really, really fast.
I think the most provocative takeaway here is about the nature of scale. You know, we live in a world that idolizes frictionless scale.
The software mentality.
Right, code that reaches 1 billion users instantly. But the physical world still has immense unyielding friction. As nations race to modernize and build greener, faster infrastructure, we assume the ultimate bottleneck is a lack of capital or maybe a lack of advanced AI.
But it's not.
No. The true bottleneck might just be the sheer physical availability of a 500-ton crawler crane, and a mechanic who knows exactly how to fix it when a hydraulic seal blows in a dust storm. It really makes you wonder who truly holds the power in the 21st century. The one who writes the code or the one who lifts the steel?
That is an incredible thought to end on. Next time you pass a massive construction site, look past the concrete and look up at the cranes. Remember the massive economic engines operating high above the skyline. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.